Hello everyone, welcome to Chasing Adventures. And as you can see behind me, I finally put the rooftop tent and everything else back onto the Pilot, and it looks amazing. So I wanted to share what I've done so far and how I did it, and talk about my future mods in this video. So first off, this Nolo design roof rack is pretty awesome. And if you have seen my installation video, I mentioned 3 reasons why I decided to get it. And most of my concerns has been addressed. One was the wind noise. It has drastically decreased. I mean, it's still somewhat there, but it's not as annoying as before. Secondly, I do feel very secure leaving my car out in the parking lot, because to remove the rooftop tent, you could only access the front mount bolts from inside of the car through the moonroof. And you have to take out the outermost bar to get to the rear bolts. And to remove the awning, you have to remove the whole rooftop tent to get to the awning's bolt. So yes, I do feel much safer leaving this car out. And finally, MPG. Now, while it's not getting the same MPG as I was getting without the rooftop tent or the awning as before, which I was getting around high 19s, but I'm still doing a lot better than before because I'm getting around 17s currently. And at times it goes up to low 18s when I'm mostly driving on the highway. And not to mention, this is still with 32-inch tires and bigger and heavier awning. So yeah, I'm very pleased with my setup. And I was able to add more lights, like these side lights, which will be very helpful while camping or driving in the dark forest roads. And these are the no-side rock lights, and I got the A package one, so I could use 4 on the top and 4 on the bottom of the Pilot. It also came with all the wiring, a remote control to control the lights, and the hardware to mount these. Now, I could have just mounted these onto the roof rack, but then it'll be pointing straight out. And so I wanted to angle them towards the ground a little. So I made a custom bracket using an aluminum L-bar and bent them to desired angle. And by the way, if you're joining our channel for the first time, welcome. And I have videos for pretty much everything that I've done to the Pilot so far, and more to come. So if you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit that bell notification so you won't miss when my next video is uploaded. Anyways, back to the video. So first, I measured the length of the lights and cut them to size and bent them using a vice grip. And I kind of eyeballed the angle, but it turned out okay. And I trimmed the corners using a Dremel and made holes for the wire and the bolts and painted them black to match the roof rack. And I installed them to the opening slots of the roof rack. And I used the hardware that came with the lights to mount the lights to the bracket, and bought some stainless steel number 10 bolts, nuts, and washers at Home Depot and used those to mount the brackets to the roof rack. And I cut just 2 wires from the wiring harness to connect all 4 lights. I connect 2 lights into one and brought that wire under the bar and connected to the other 2 lights, and connect all of them to 1 wire and had 1 wire going down to the switch panel. And since I already had the rear lights going down the same path, I had to use electrical tape to wrap them up together. And I get asked a lot on how I ran the wires from top of the roof to the engine bay. And it's really easy. Just run the wire between the windshield and the A-pillar and squeeze the wire in between that gap. And it holds just fine. And feed it through the rubber grommet to the underside of the plastic cover and to the switch panel. And now you got lights. And these no-side rock lights are small but very mighty. It lights up the area pretty well. And I also tested out in the dark, and it was bright enough to light up the side of the road or good to be used at a campground. Now for the rear chase light, these were originally mounted on the rooftop tent, but now that I have a roof rack, I could now separately mount them to the roof rack. And it was a tight fit, so any larger lights than these will not clear the hatch. But if you decided to mount it on top of the bar, I think it'll clear the hatch even with the larger LED lights. But I had to mount it under because of the 270-degree awning. So now I got side and the rear covered. And I installed the V-boost antenna to the awning's rail. And this is how I always mounted the antenna. So it's very easy to mount the antenna, even if you don't have a roof rack system like this, as long as you have an awning. And it could be any type of awning. And another benefit is that when you have the antenna folded, it hides behind the awning. So it's out of the way and it's hidden. So I like that a lot. Now, the final missing piece of the puzzle, the rooftop tent and the light bar. Now, this took me a few tries and few days of micro-adjusting everything, and as it sits now, I could utilize everything on there. Because at first attempt, I put the light bar to the frontmost bar of the roof rack and measured the length of the rooftop tent and put it on, and I tried opening it, but I didn't calculate the hinges when it's fully open. So it was hitting the light bar. So I moved the rooftop tent a little back so that I could open the rooftop tent without hitting the light bar. But now it was interfering with the 270-degree awning. So I had to adjust the awning, and it was okay. But this time I didn't calculate the tent's rain fly poles. So I had to move the tent again. And this time I have to move the tent forward, passing the frontmost bars of the roof rack in order for me to fully deploy the awning and still be able to use the tent's rain fly, which meant I couldn't keep my light bar. So it was a catch-22. I wanted to keep my light bar, but that means I couldn't use the tent's rain fly, or I couldn't fully deploy the awning. So back to the drawing board, and after brainstorming for a while, I decided to make a bracket for the light bar so I could utilize everything on there. So went to Lowe's, picked up an aluminum bar, cut it to size, bent them into shape, and after many back and forth measurements, I finally had a bracket to hold my light bar. And to keep them from moving around, I used the bolt that was already on the fairing along with the M6 bolt that I placed onto the bar. So this way, the light bar will be securely mounted and won't bounce or move around when I'm going off-roading. But the bolt that was originally on the fairing were too short after putting the bracket, so I just used the M6 carriage bolt and tightened it down. And after test fitting it, for extra layer of security, I put double-side tape on back of the brackets and painted satin black to match the fairing. And here's the finished product. And now I could adjust the tent without any obstruction. And the light bar is mounted very solid and it does not move or bounce around. And for this, I gave myself a pat on the back. So after final adjustments to the rooftop tent, here it is. I could now fully deploy the awning, open the hatch, use the rain fly, although it still slightly touches the awning, but I could adjust the rod later, so that'll solve that, and still have the light bar to light up dark forest roads. And another thing that I noticed was the awning was a little too short to cover the entire hitch, but this was only on the last panel and the edge of the hitch, so I don't mind it too much. Plus, I got a wall for the awning, which should cover this portion to the hitch. So what do you guys think? Honestly, I think the light bar seems a little out of place, but it is what it is. Also, I couldn't mount it on the rooftop tent because of the hinges. Maybe a shorter light bar would have worked, but not mine. And sometimes when you're modding cars, you have to be a little creative and think outside the box to make everything work. So all of that is back on the Pilot, which took me a few days of trial and error, but it was all well worth it. Oh, and I also added traction boards on top of the rooftop tent. And this was really easy to do by using sand mounts and T-track bolts. And another benefit of using this roof rack system is that it sits very low to the roof compared to having roof bars on the factory rails. So even with the traction board mounted on top of the rooftop tent, I'm still able to fit into my garage. So hopefully this video has given you guys some ideas or what to expect when you're modding your Pilot. And all this adjusting and making brackets for the light bar could have been easily avoided if you had a different rooftop tent to begin with, like the ones without needing a rain fly rods. But those generally cost more or heavier. Or if you have a shorter light bar or none at all, then you wouldn't have to go through this process. But it's one of those things, once you have it and use it, you can't go back. Plus, I have a pretty poor night vision, so I have to wear prescribed glasses at night. So this helps me tremendously. So that's all done. And next, I'm waiting on NOLA Design rear window panels to mount my Rotopax gas tank and other accessories that I normally carry, like an axe and a mini shovel. And a rock slider also from NOLA Design, because my wife has a hard time getting in and out of the Pilot, so she's been asking for a step rail. But why not get something that will work double as a rock slider? So I'm waiting on those. And I also need to add a trailer hitch harness. I mean, don't get me started, but I don't understand how they install a hitch, but not the harness. I mean, at this price point, it should have came with one and just sell the hitch ball as an accessory. But they didn't, so I need to add that. And I think I'll be pretty much done for a while. I mean, I do eventually want to lift it, but I want to wait until the warranty runs out, just in case. So that's all I have for you guys today. And if you have questions, feel free to ask anytime, and I'll try to get to you as soon as I can. So if you made it this far, please like, subscribe, and share this video or any other videos to someone who can also benefit from it. So thank you all for tuning in today. And until next time, keep chasing adventures, and I'll see you all on my next video.